You're live.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Bad Girls Guide with Living Well. This is Dr. Heather Wdowin, and my guest today is Carolyn Verastigue, and we're going to be talking about bees, honey, and the sweet things in life. Last week, we talked about sugar and how it was poison, and so hopefully this is a little bit happier of a topic in some ways. So the Bad Girls Guide to Living Well is a companion podcast for Naturopathic MD, which is a website where you can get information, testing, and concierge telemedicine with functional medicine specialists. And this is going to be a big educational part for you, I hope, in speaking with Carolyn about bees, which is one of our favorite topics. And I was hoping that she was going to be doing a bee beard for our video, but I guess that didn't have been good.
I wish, right? If I had my hive ready to go, I would be able to do that.
So I just bought a hive.
Nice.
And I just figured, like, if I build it, they will come. So I'm trying to, like, and it's really been working out very well. So if you could tell me about your experience with bees and how you fell in love with them, we would love that.
Of course, absolutely. I was thinking about this story yesterday and trying to remember what got me started, how I was so interested in learning about bees. I think it started off actually in discovering what specifically was in our food system, and in turn learning about pesticides and how they are so very harmful to the bees, and how their decline is something that I wanted to change. At the time, my boss was actually teaching me how to grow vegetables. He had an organic vegetable garden, and I figured, well, let me get him a beehive for his birthday. I think that would be a great addition to his garden, right? And come to find out, he was allergic to bees. So, so it was a great gift. The thought was definitely there, but I decided to take over the aspect of, I'm going to build this beehive from scratch. And I did the same thing as you, Heather. I had the hive. I built it. I was so proud of myself. I think there were like 400 nails involved, and fingers and hammers and all types of things. And so I had my hive ready to go out into the garden, and I waited a couple of months and they didn't come. The bees did not come. And I learned that it was really, to get them started in rural areas, you have to purchase the queen bee itself, herself, as well as the colony. So I went to an apiary and I decided to get the bees, introduce them to their hive. They did quite well. And so everything else was a learning experience from there. So that's the start of it all.
I think bees are probably the closest thing that we have to magic.
Yes.
As far as everything that they do. I got stung by a bee while I was pregnant, and I hope that my kid had superpowers from it. But he might still, I guess we'll see. He very well. But I just watched a documentary on Netflix, I think, and it's called Rotten. And they have a whole episode about bees and how much of our honey isn't actually honey. And it's like a processed, often it comes from China, and they use rice syrup that you can't necessarily tell whether it's really honey or not. And honey has been found in Egyptian tombs. It's like 5,000 years old, and you can still eat it. I mean, it's good for like digestive problems, wounds. Obviously, it's a delicious thing to eat. It can be used for allergies, and it's basically bee vomit.
Yes, exactly.
You think about, like, if we would ever eat anything else that was vomit, and no, probably not. But when it's from this little amazing animal, it's crazy. It's mind blowing.
Right. I just, learned about the, it's interesting, the pollen pants that fall off of the bees when they're going into their hive, and how if you eat bee pollen, it contains 22 different amino acids, which is really beneficial, especially, I'm sure, like you're saying, finding out that honey was distributed or manufactured in China. It's really sad because we have to try to get people to focus on purchasing local honey. And that's beneficial to yourself because you're fighting those allergies in the air, any types of flu that's going around, and the amino acids that's exactly what you need to take in to help combat that. So, yeah.
Interesting, because it kind of gives a package of pollen that people might be sensitive to outside and packages it so that your immune system doesn't have as much of an overreaction to it. And that's why the local is so cool.
Right.
And yet if you pasteurize it, a lot of that gets ruined as far as
exactly
the things. And so that's why the raw honey is so good. I actually have, this is my husband has eaten most of it because he thinks it's so amazing, but this is from like alfalfa honey from a local beekeeper, and this was his private reserve. It was completely unpasteurized and raw and local, which is hard to find. And so these are the kind of people that you need to make friends with. But you can see how dark that is.
Yeah.
And it tastes like it. It's from around a bunch of horse properties, and so you can almost taste the alfalfa. He's like, great, it tastes like horses. Which it's just so neat because it's buckwheat honey too. And so it's got a lot of that buckwheat taste, and you can tell where the bees are coming from. It does change the way that the honey tastes, and it's just so neat.
That's awesome, Heather.
Yeah, so we've made friends with the local beekeeper since my bees still haven't taken up residence.
Right. I know. It will come.
Were you able to like order them online, or did you
I did.
go to the on-site place? Oh, you did?
I did order them online. Luckily, where I was at the time, I was able to go and pick them up myself, and they did an introductory class of how to introduce them to the hive. You have to place the queen bee in a specific spot on one of the frames, and you have to make sure to introduce the rest of the colony to her. They can sometimes reject a queen, which is very interesting, and then you would have to introduce a new one. They can kill her if they don't think that she is the best queen bee out there, right, for them. So luckily mine was accepted and she did well. It was such a learning process though, and how careful you are with introducing them, and then you definitely build up that super house on top of the colony itself where they can actually store the honey, because the hive where the queen is laying all of her eggs, you don't typically want to mix that with when you're extracting the honey to eat and enjoy.
Right. So I think that, something that we have to talk about is the colony collapse.
Right.
Exactly. And so it's part like why I built I have my hive, and, we'll see what happens. And I'm definitely going to have to take that class that you got me to figure out how to really do it. But colony collapse is a terrible thing. I mean, we have bees that are dying. And it's interesting in the US, like so much of our food just across the planet is necessary. It comes from pollinators, and bees are huge pollinators. And that show Rotten talked about not only how the quality of honey that we're buying in stores is not often much better than high fructose corn syrup, but they talked a little bit about how, we're in California, and most of the bees in this country are actually shipped here to pollinate our almond orchards.
Yes.
And that's crazy. So they take them, they put them on flatbeds, and they ship them out here to pollinate, millions of acres of almond orchards. And the bees, because almonds don't have a whole lot of pollen, the flowers, they have to give them sugar syrup to live off of.
Yep.
And I found it was so interesting because with naturopathicmd.com, we talk about how all like human health that's not like an infection is based on inflammation, toxicity, and stress.
Right.
And so we were talking about these bees and colony collapse. So they have stress because we steal their winter stores. I mean, that's what we're doing. We're stealing their honey. And so we take more and more and more and more because we're trying to, have honey instead of sugar for our own health. And that's stressing the bees, right? And then you have toxicity, which is all the pesticides and the EMFs, even possibly, and like all these herbicides and nicotinic things that kill bees.
Yep.
So there's your toxicity. And then I thought, well, if we're giving them sugar syrup, that's inflammation, because there's very little more inflammatory than white sugar syrup. And so that's how
Exactly.
we're killing the bees, the same way we're killing ourselves.
Right. Exactly. That is something that is also the varroa mites too that have come in, and different insects that attack some of the hives. I mean, there's so many different outside forces, the increase in warmth as far as temperature goes, lack of water in certain areas. I mean, there's so many things that really attribute to their decline. And it's really sad.
Yeah. So that's why I think it's so important for, people to try to be little backyard beekeepers, or at least like, what can you do? I guess, like, what would you say that you could do to be good stewards of bees?
Right. It was a great question. I was thinking about that before. I would definitely say if you have the courage to become a backyard beekeeper, it is so possible. I mean, especially if you're living in California, there's certain areas that you can do that. Even LA County, people have rooftop bees that they keep. In San Diego specifically, with lots of the different crops that they have going on out there. I think it's important to set that up on your own. It's something that you obviously can't do, maybe you're afraid your children could get, stung. I would suggest, finding a cause, learning more about it, donating money where you do the research to help the bees. So, can you hear me, Heather?
Oh, we're back. Good.
Are we back on? Okay. Somebody doesn't want us to tell people how to help save the bees.
Right? So last I heard was your rooftop beekeeping in LA County was
In
awesome.
LA, right. If, and in San Diego as well, I would suggest there's lots, because there's crops and it's a little bit more rural. But, in supporting bees, if you're just aware, instead of calling an exterminator, if you're seeing bees in trees that are, traveling into different hives because of the heat, I would definitely suggest calling local beekeepers. Like you had said before, definitely supporting local beekeepers with honey production. You can go to Mothers, you can go to Sprout. They do have those options there. Not necessarily your larger chain grocery stores, but I think that's a good start in educating yourself, educating your children to not be afraid. Because I can remember growing up and being afraid of bees. And, I think it's really important to let the children know, hey, we need to save these guys and we don't have to be scared of them. Right. We want them to flourish.
Yeah.
So,
because we could have incredible famines if we have continued colony colony. Like, a lot of our food is dependent on it. And I think also there's something like, you can buy organic seedlings and plants that aren't treated with the pesticides, like Home Depot and Lowe's, for example. They treat a lot of their plants with these nicotinic-based pesticides and herbicides. And so getting plants for your backyard in the spring, or when you're doing your planting, that don't have that could be really beneficial as well.
100%. I was thinking to your father, actually, one of the very first phone conversations I had with him, he said, well, have you planted any borage? And I was like, I know, I haven't heard of that. He said, the bees love it. Such a vibrant color, and it grows fast. And so golden root, there's borage, lavender, calendula, even plants. I mean, planting those in the backyard is a simple thing to help with all pollinators, not just yeah.
So what's your favorite use of honey?
Ooh, good question. Is this no, this is family style
No,
program here
we
on
can rate it
Facebook
whatever
Live.
you want.
Okay. I mean, to be honest, I really, really love it in tea. That's the first thing that I thought of was as far as a natural sweetener. Um, I've used it face masks though,
Have
mixing
you?
it with avocado
Oh,
and
really? How's that
putting
work?
that exactly. I would suggest that for sure. I just actually had a taste of some bee pollen that I have and found out it's very, very bitter because of what I
Huh.
just read with the amino acids. So they suggest putting that on yogurt. But I think I would just take it down just to take in the amino acids and that would be it. But yeah, definitely sweeten the tea. That's probably, or your face masks. What about you,
Yeah.
Heather?
Well, I think I always have it in tea. I always have it in tea, but it's like some of the Manuka honey studies that have been done, which I don't do a whole lot of Manuka, but it comes from New Zealand. It has to come
Right.
from New Zealand, and it can be used topically for a lot of wound stuff.
Right.
I actually probably my favorite way of using honey, not the one that I always do, but like in our family, we don't have a whole lot of time for colds,
Right.
right? And not even my brothers get the man flu. Like they just
Right.
don't. They never. And because I think that what we do, like with our Italian roots, is we chop up garlic, we cover it in honey, and we
Yes.
keep it. And so nothing can live through the garlic, but the honey also stimulates the immune system, and it's antimicrobial and bacteria in and of itself. And so not only does it sweeten the garlic, which is like napalm for bacteria, but it has these other effects on the immune system. And
Right.
I think that, that aspect of how it can work with the body is so incredibly beneficial. And
Definitely.
it, for thousands of years, we've talked about like milk and honey and they have a role, and it definitely has a role in medicine. And so Manuka is probably the best researched. And also it's really quite, it's like super powered honey. I have a bottle of it. This one's from Trader Joe's, and it's got like the 10 plus for their MGO stuff or their certified Manuka factor. And 10 plus, I mean, you'll pay a lot of money for Manuka honey. Like saw a bottle that was like $50 at one point. And so if you have a lot of allergies, I would use that, or like wounds, because it can really help with the wound aspect. But really, I just like to eat it. I give who a spoonful of it, and I'll find him, and he'll have like the honey bear, and he'll be trying.
This is
yeah. So he's working on his immune system. But
right.
One thing that I don't really know a whole lot about is like the royal jelly. And people ask me a lot of times about, whether I use it. And I just don't really know much about it. Do you?
That's a good question. I purchased recently from Target of all places, they had an Egyptian royal jelly face cream that they were selling. And I know with royal jelly, it's specifically fed to young queens. So it's this special jelly that they feed to these up and coming queens, right? So I don't know how they specifically extract that and can market it. I've heard the benefits are great. So it's something that I should probably look into,
Yeah, maybe
learn
keep
more
us
about.
young queens.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah, I love them. I think that it's sad that we have such a fear about them. I mean, we even had killer bees, and
Right.
A lot of people get scared about bees or kill them. And I always try not to, because I think that they're so important, and they, are a real environmental issue that we have to pay attention to.
Exactly. It is important for sure. And luckily with our family, we're going to get to try to have more of them, millions, hopefully,
I
right?
know. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to it. I can't wait to wear the bee suits.
Yes. I love that
Now,
they
one
have
of the things that
children.
I actually really want to do is like the apitherapy, which is the bee sting therapies, which can reset the immune system from autoimmunity and help with like pain and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see if I can convince people to get stung by bees for their own benefit.
I think it could, honestly. I mean, why not, right?
I
I
mean,
think the bees pick up a smell of that too, because when you are beekeeping, I mean, it's a known fact you're going to get stung at some point. I mean, because in moving the different frames and trying to make sure your queen is alive and making sure that the colony is healthy, you are inadvertently going to kill one of the bees, and that produces a pheromone that the other bees are picking up, and that's why they feel threatened and they want to sting or attack what's threatening them, right? But I noticed after I had been stung quite a few times, my swelling went way down after the first initial stings. And then anytime I'm out in nature, maybe it's just the love that I have for bees, but they gravitate towards me. It's like they can smell something inside of me. It's probably my imagination, but I'm gonna, again, with the magic.
I mean, they have a dance that they do that we're
Yes.
just figuring out what it does.
Yes, yes. I was learning about that too.
It's just, I mean, they're doing these little wiggles to tell the story of how to find flowers to each other.
Yes,
And so
yes,
their communication is so amazing, and their altruism and their like hive mentality. And just like you think about this little insect and all of the things that it communicates and it does, and recognizing pheromones, and
right.
it's very similar to us in a lot of ways, that it has this read. And I mean, I think that there's energy that runs through everything, and if you pay attention, then I think it was Wayne Dyer talks about how if you don't hold animosity in your heart for any being, like even the animals will come and
Yes, I
that's
love
why you
that.
need squirrels.
That's sweet.
Every being on the planet will know, right? And so
Right.
we want to do good medicine, and we want to do like good things in our lives that don't hurt others. And I really do think that everything can tell. I
I
mean,
think you're right. I think
everything
you're
can tell.
right.
I mean, your
Yeah,
dogs know if someone's weird or not,
that's
right?
right. That's right.
Bees
Exactly.
know, kids know,
Small, exactly. Small babies. They do know. They can sense. They have that extra sense.
whatever that is. So
Right.
you're one of the sweet things in life. So let's talk about
Yeah.
what have you been doing?
Well, lots of self-care right now, exploration, learning about different things, specifically balancing of doshas,
Oh, cool.
and learning how each individual is, kapha, vata, pitta, right? And learning that about my specific self being more pitta based, I'm learning about what foods, can balance my system, what can alleviate stress for me specifically, how to incorporate meditation in that. There's a lot of tea drinking right now, Heather, going on. I wake up and have hot water to balance. I have, green tea to get me started, no coffee, and then, the herbal remedy in the evening. And your rose tea, I actually enjoyed it last night. It's phenomenal. So just being aware of, the outside stressors of life, and learning about attachment and dependency that we've had and we've carried from being young beings, to how we interact in relationships with, as adults, and whether that be work or personal or romantic, it really transcends from what we carry from our childhood. So just being aware, being mindful of that, and being able to accept and choose peace as opposed to anger or holding resentment on things. I mean, I think it's a lot better path to accept who you are, accept what you want in this life, and move forward with what's important. And the point is you have the choice. So I think understanding that, as a 30-year-old, something that I don't think that I really got in my 20s, I think this is going to be a really great decade for me. So
The 30s are great.
yeah, that's what I hear.
I think that I felt more like I actually became an adult in my 30s. I don't really think that I was an adult in my 20s.
Right.
But it's like actually recognizing who you are and accepting it. And one of my favorite things about you is that you are always down to grow for a positive, beneficial way. And if you're like, well, I learned about that, I'm going to implement that.
Right.
You don't have a whole lot of resistance or attachment maybe.
Right.
To, whatever dysfunction or whatever the past was. I love that about you. And
thank you, Heather.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Go on.
It's a beautiful way to live, in that sense of being able to take what you're learning every day. I feel like a sponge. I mean, listening to you and your podcast, it's just, really, you soak in so much information that you don't know, that most people don't have. Just basic science, as far as learning and what choices to make at the grocery store and at restaurants. It's baffling how people really don't know. And you having the education that you have and having the foundation that you have is just, you're a blessing to everyone. And I love knowing you, Heather. It really is the most beautiful person. I'm serious.
Yeah, I think that it was really interesting when we were texting back and forth about like the beauty products, right? It's like, what, eventually I think part of our little girls ranch retreat is figuring out how we're going to make a lot of, it's almost homesteading, because you can't get stuff that's not poisoned,
right?
And even like I bought natural shampoo that I even vetted when I was buying it, and then I was looking at the actual, because I got it and I was like, oh, this smells off. Right. And then I looked, and it has these chemicals in it, so how do you protect yourself? Well, we're gonna
how do we I feel like we really have to make things on our own, like you said. With using what knowledge we have in basic, like honey, using that as different things. Masks for our hair, masks for our face and our skin. It comes from nature. As opposed to just lathering ourselves in toxic chemicals.
Right. So much of it comes from petroleum.
Right.
Which is not, think about, like, I put petroleum jelly on my skin when I was younger, and I didn't even think about it. It's petroleum jelly. Right. Why would I want to put something that came from like a byproduct of gasoline on my skin?
Right. It's
or on your babies.
Oh, that's the other thing with the amount of perfume and cologne, and mothers. Do you even have that thought process to think, maybe I shouldn't be carrying my 8-month-old baby with this perfume that I've doused myself in? What are the effects, right? And it would just be great if society could just think about these things, as opposed to what's being pushed on us and what's being marketed to us, right?
Right.
So
I think that's the thing, is you think that if it's being sold, it has to be safe.
Right. Nope.
No. And it's mind-blowing in some ways, right? It's just like, I think that our culture is so incredibly sick. And if you look down from the top, you can see just about every single place that your health can be eroded, it is.
Right.
Your food, your air, your water,
yep.
The clothes that you wear, the carpet, your paint, your, everything.
Exactly.
It's everything. The stress, the consumerism, the addictive nature of our screens and this and that.
Yes.
So like, and it's all profit driven.
Exactly. It's surrounding us.
It's amazing. And so that's one thing that I really hope that we're able to do, is just educate people about what are these things that you can do in your daily life, that you don't necessarily have to, go full crazy like me. Right?
Right.
But if you do, you're probably going to be healthier longer. But like, what are the
Absolutely.
little things that you can do? I mean, I love perfume.
Yeah.
I love it. I
Yeah.
mean, I have some of my favorites that I can think about and I can smell now, right?
Yes. Yes.
And yet I haven't worn it in years because it's so toxic.
Exactly. And you care about your baby and you care about yourself, That's so one thing that has helped me, because I was the biggest perfume girl. I think I may have had 10 to 12 growing, like in high school and college. I just, which one am I going to wear today? But transitioning, I always go to Mother's Market. It's what I call my sanctuary. I would worship outside of it if I could, if they wouldn't pull me out of the parking lot. So, but what I found there is essential oils and all of the different roll-ons that they offer in different flavors. My favorite is the coconut, creamy coconut.
Oh, is it?
Yes, it's awesome. So they have all different options and flavors, and that is something that's a choice you can make as opposed to the toxic perfume, right?
Right.
So,
And they do, I mean, so I'm trying to figure out how to recreate my favorite blends with
yes.
essential oils.
I think is that an idea on the horizon?
Yeah, Carolyn, when we have nothing else to do, I totally think that we should become perfumers.
Heather and Carolyn.
We'll put it in like honey base. We'll do honey base.
Perfect.
I mean, the essential oils are amazing in and of themselves.
Right.
I mean, in and of themselves, they're fantastic. And so if you can, like, we use lavender a lot. Like we'll put it on ourselves for anxiety and like calm, or like even vanilla. Like vanilla extract is actually, because I think it smells like cookies. It's a huge aphrodisiac for men, right? Like,
I feel like I've seen that from a movie.
Right, probably. I smell like cookies.
Right? I do like
so the essential oils are a huge piece with the perfumes. And I was with a girlfriend of mine a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about shampoo. And she's like, please God, can I just keep my Pantene because it works, right? Like it works, nothing else works. And shampoos are tough.
Right.
I mean, they are. It's hard to find a good one that's natural, that doesn't,
Right. Kind of.
It's just different. And so it's like, yeah, just keep your Pantene. If that's the one thing you're going to do, keep it. But, we have to support your system through it.
Right.
I actually, this is because I have it on the shelf. Have you ever seen this?
Ooh, no.
This is an Ayurvedic skincare book.
Really?
This is what I think that we're going to have to do, like our dosha balancing skin assessments.
Yes.
This is it, Carolyn.
There it is. Here we go. Everyone can see we've got our idea on the horizon, and
we're going to do it. Radiant skin and inner harmony with Ayurveda.
I love it. I love it, Heather. Really. I mean, because there are alternatives, and this stuff was being practiced 5,000 years ago, and we've strayed away so far in society today, but we can go back. We really can.
I really think, and it's something I haven't put together totally in my head, or I guess, how do we prove it, maybe? Not that I necessarily think that we have to prove it, but the further that we get from nature, the sicker we are.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, it's even now, like if you garden or walk barefoot on the ground, they can prove it's good for you. The more time you spend outside, they can prove it's good for you. I mean, the less chemicals you're exposed to, the better it is. So the further that we get away from nature, the sicker we are. So we have to get back, at least in part, right? I mean, at least to support our systems biochemically.
Right.
Because, I mean, it's we have an epidemic of sickness and unnatural living and unnatural light and processed foods. One of my favorite stories is I have a friend from France that came over, and she was like, I don't understand these signs that say made with real fruit. What else could it possibly be? She's like, what else would you possibly, what? And we have signs that say that.
Right.
And people really believe there's better living through chemistry. And I don't actually think that's true. That's what we're seeing now, is a fallout where, I mean, the Handmaid's Tale is going to be true.
I know. I've heard that is such an awesome show. I've heard. Do you watch it?
No, I can't watch it.
Okay. Gotcha.
It's too, I try to keep the exposures that I have in my life more positive.
That's great. Oh, you know what? Yes, you sent me that video the other day. I was thinking that of trying to stay away from the news, trying to stay away from mainstream media, staying away from those negative articles, reading about everything that you see just blasted at you from every angle. You're welcoming negativity into your psyche. You might not even realize it. It's like, oh, I can read this and move on to something else. But no, it's probably sticking with you.
Yeah, at least because it's also like there's nothing that we can do about any of it, really, right? Like, what can we do? We can make choices in our own lives for our own loved ones, as far as like how we spend our money and how we spend our time. But as far as like the fact that, you know, our environment is just getting degraded more and more, and they're, you know, like all of the stuff,
Right,
all of it, there's nothing you can really do. And so I tell myself the Serenity Prayer, right? Like, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. Okay. You know, the courage to change the things that I can, which is what, you know, we're trying to do here, right? Like, educate people, change how you live your life as much as, you know, within reason, but, you know, for your own benefit. And then the wisdom to know the difference. And there is nothing that I can do about anything that's on the news.
I know.
Absolutely. And so I just don't watch it.
Right. Exactly. And it's spun in a direction that probably is half the truth at the end of the day, too.
And it's all fear-based. I mean, it's not like there's a good news source, really.
It's, you know, that's exactly what they're doing with bees, too, which is, I guess we kind of have to be thankful for, but they're putting it out there, mainstream media, that we should be fearful that the bees are declining, and we should, you know, be afraid, and fear does sell in the media. And so it's a good thing, because we are getting the financial assistance to do studies on the neonics and how they affect the bees. And so from that perspective, I can be thankful.
Yes.
And grateful, but still it's everything else to do with our administration and government and that sort of thing is something that I just don't really want to spend the time on.
Yep. And so, you know, I try to just shift things to be like detoxifying myself from almost reality.
Yes.
I'm just gonna totally detach myself from reality, and then, like, you know, make it till you make it, create your own reality. Like, it's a beautiful world, and I'm going to see it as a beautiful world, and I'm going to love everybody that I can and make it a sweeter place.
Right.
I think. And
detaching is okay. That's the thing. I mean, you think about detachment, it maybe sounds like you're avoiding, but in reality, it's detaching from what is not healthy for you.
It's control too, right? Mm-hmm. So, like, I've been doing my own, I think that I love that you're always evolving and and striving for things better, because I hope that I'm the same way, right? Like, if something comes across my radar, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. I'm going to try to do that. And so I've, even in like relationship things, looking at, you know, if you love someone, and even with, you know, children, right? If you love them, you don't have to control them all the time, right? Or like, how do you, or even like loved ones, or I'll look at things that my husband does and I'm like, I would never do that, right? But that's him. Like, why does it doesn't matter about me. Like, I just have to, you know, love and support him and let him go and do what he does if it makes him happy, right? I mean, I don't necessarily have to.
Exactly.
That's not up to me.
I think that's the secret to life, is trying not to control everyone and everything in every situation. It's just being in control to the tip of your nose. Really. That is what you can handle. And once you have that in check, then those outside things don't affect you as much. And you learn to love people where they're at, right, in life.
And also react a little bit differently too, with like the framing. And so it's like, I could get mad about that person stealing my parking spot, or I could get extra exercise walking into the store or something like
Sure,
that. Right? Like
sure.
how you meet, I really do think like how you react to the world is so much more your experience than what actually happens to you.
Right.
And so I've been working a little bit more on that,
Hmm.
you know,
It's
which is
great.
constant exploration of it.
It is. It's a daily thing. It really is something you have to incorporate in your mind every single day, every moment, actually, from moment to moment. You just have to be aware, and you have a choice, right?
Yeah, you do. You have a tremendous choice.
Mm-hmm.
Tremendous choice. It's like, but also the practice I like, because you don't get to do aerobics once and never have to do it again, right? Like you don't just exercise once and you're good.
Right, that's it. Right.
Right? It's a constant experience. And
Exactly.
so I
Yeah.
just want to be able to inspire people to look at their experience with a little bit more joy and excitement about possibilities
Mm-hmm.
and health and life. And I think that if you're not healthy and you don't feel well, that's very difficult to do.
Sure.
Because a lot of people will say, well, just change your mind, just change the way you look at it, like don't talk about that, or and just
Right.
get over it or something.
Right.
And if you don't feel well physically, that makes that mental toughness harder to do.
Sure.
And so I think that eating more honey will make you feel better physically.
I think so too. A spoonful every day, right?
Right,
Keep the
I
immune
do think it'd
system
probably
up.
be good.
Yes. I
Yeah.
think I want some now. We were talking about it so much.
I have a
Fine.
couple of jars next to me. You see me like honey bear it like my kid.
That's
Um,
awesome, Heather.
so I think that one thing that you're going through now,
Mhm.
also in a little bit of a deeper way, and if you'd like to talk about it, I would love to, because I think that it's such an important thing that kind of goes along with a Handmaid's Tale, right?
Sure.
Is, you know, in the next few years, uh, you're probably going to want to be having kids at some
Right.
point, right?
Correct.
So I would love for you to share some of the things that you're doing in order to ensure that they are as healthy as possible, because I think that when we're looking at the chemicals and we're looking at the stress, like we're having more and more children with health issues. So how do we decrease, you know, the likelihood of having kids that are, you know, compromised in their, you know, physical
Exactly.
nature? And I know that you're doing some of those things, so I'd love to hear about it if you'd like to share.
For sure. Yes. Thank you. That is on the horizon. I want to be a mother. I can feel the uterus calling to me at night, and putting it at bay for now, because in doing so, you have to prepare your body and yourself. Not only mentally, I think that's a huge challenge that maybe you're not quite prepared for until they get here, but physically and internally in my body. I'm originally from Texas, which is a pretty toxic place, actually. Their regulations are not as great as California or New York. And so, with that being said, I started chelation in January of this year. So what that does, I go now. It's a little bit more often, every 2 weeks, but I did go once a month to get chelators inside and intravenously, um, and pull out some of the toxins that are inside of my body, and regulate that with uh, taking supplements, drinking. I try to drink a gallon of water a day, which is extremely difficult, but to flush all of those toxins out, and then maintaining the healthy supplements. Because with chelation, you are pulling out the heavy metals inside of you, right? So with that does come your iron and some of the healthy versions of mercury. So supplementing in turn will help me have that balance, right, to where I'm not harming myself in any way. But I, choose to do that so I can strip everything out as much as possible, and choose to try not to eat a lot of fish, and eating different toxic foods, or exposing myself to some of the perfumes and products, hair products, makeup products, skin products that we are exposed to in life that we don't even realize. So cutting that out, and really just changing my entire life in that way, has been helping to get me prepared to want to have children within the next couple of years. I know. So once I complete chelation this year, because it does take a pretty long time, and you can probably speak more on some of on how that works and how it goes. But the next year, I'll definitely want to be pretty pure as far as what I'm putting in my body and what I'm exposing myself to.
Right.
So, does that?
Oh, definitely. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I love it, because if you don't take those things out,
Mm-hmm.
they get passed on to the kids, right? And we have this exposure that we keep in our bodies, and then when we make our babies, we make them out of a lot of what we have. And so there are studies that show that the higher levels of inflammation that a woman has when she's pregnant, the more likely a baby is to have autism.
Right.
Not even chemical related.
Right.
And so then the pollution that she's exposed to, she's more likely to have babies with birth defects. And so this is like what's happening during. So it's like the perfect preventative medicine. And I did the same thing, Carolyn. Like I chelated before I had my son. And I think that I saw a billboard while I was driving that said, invest in your future, bank your eggs now. Right. So it's not even like, IVF treatment because your hormones are so messed up because of all the chemicals that you're exposed to. Bank your eggs now, because we don't know how viable they're even going to be as you get older.
Wow.
Right?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it's like shifts it. And so you can see like the pulse of culture as far as, people are having more and more trouble having kids.
Right.
And we're having we have the highest childhood death rate in the developed world.
Oh my gosh.
It's mind blowing.
It is.
Right? And we have autism levels that are skyrocketing. Like they're on exponential growth.
Right.
It's not just diagnosis. And so what is it? It's most likely environmental.
Absolutely.
Inflammatory. And so how do you ensure that you're going to give these children the best start? Because I mean, they're showing that air pollution, the higher levels of air pollution, age babies genetically before they're even born.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't that crazy?
That is.
I can't think of anything more unnatural than that.
Right.
So making this commitment to make your body as healthy as possible to grow these little tiny humans, I applaud you for making that commitment, because it's not necessarily easy, and it's not necessarily inexpensive either.
Exactly. Yeah, it's definitely.
It costs more to be healthy. It costs more for a good supplement, more to get the poisons out of your body.
Right. In the long
right.
run, though, it's got to be better. I try to explain that to some of my coworkers that laugh at me and call me a hippie, right? And I'm like, well, in the long run, I don't want to be paying astronomical medical bills, right? I want to do what I can now, and even to go further with children and what they're exposed to. Why would I want to inject my newborn baby with metals and chemicals? It's just something that I don't want to do. It's scary. I think Australia is implementing a tax on parents that have decided not to vaccinate their children, and that's really intrusive to me and not cool. So
it's so far reaching, as far as even the United States wouldn't sign an accord recently saying that they wanted to support breastfeeding.
Yes. Right? It's just what better thing that would come from the mother, right, to the child.
Studies have shown it's best. Now, some women can't do it.
Right.
And
That's
you know
true.
what? then we need to find that's a good time for formula, obviously, right?
Sure.
Like that's an important time to be able, because you got to feed babies, but to not support and say like, this is an important thing that we recommend doing first.
Right.
And, like it's not necessarily an easy thing, but there's a lot of things that can be done in order to support that healthy process to make our babies as strong as possible, both with like brain development as well as, their immune system.
Right.
Yeah. So
we're on the right path, Heather. We're trying here.
We just got to get the word out there.
That's right.
Our honey-based cosmetic line.
That's right. It's in the works. Just inception is today.
Right. We can probably do like bee facials. So we'll put honey all over people's faces and then kill a bee and they'll like do the venom injection and then you'll look 15 years younger.
Yes, exactly.
We might need to beta test that.
Yes.
I need to think through that a little bit.
This is so great.
Well, I'm going to get to come down and see you very soon.
I'm so excited. Yes.
And have you read anything good lately?
Right now, I can't say that it's great. It's about being a codependent of a child of an alcoholic. So it's learning about how you establish relationships, how you're really, like we mentioned before, hurting yourself, and trying to be in so much control of everything else. And so taking control of yourself is going to be the best thing. But yeah, it's a tough pill to swallow. But like you said, I feed off of that growth and opportunity to be a better version of myself. And it's really, really good to learn about what makes me tick. So right now, codependency no more. Melody Beatty, she's great.
I think that she's great.
She is great. She's
something that I've recommended a lot with her.
Right.
I'm reading one on like being having an inner badass.
Yes.
We'll see how that goes. Right?
It's out there and in there.
But I think that, just like you've done a beautiful job and you're on this incredible journey where you're addressing like your health and you're addressing your, physical health and your mental health and your spiritual health and all of these different ways, just as an exploration of how you can be a better, more awesome you. And I think that's fantastic. And I love what you're doing and I'm glad that I get to share it with you. I think we should go on a trip.
I think that's a given. I think we have been trying to get something planned. I think that's needs to happen ASAP.
Yeah, we should go somewhere natural where we can relax around trees and things.
Yes.
Watch bees and.
Yes.
Well, I mean, the beach is always nice, but it's nice to get out into where there's no noise, maybe.
Right. Lots of quiet, lots of reflection, meditation.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, thank you so much for being on. You're an inspiration to me, and I really appreciated this. I love you so much, and so this has been the Bad Girls Guide to Living Well, and you can follow us on Facebook at naturopathicmd.com and also naturopathicmd.com. And do you have any last words for us, Carolyn?
I just want to say, save the bees!
Save the bees!
Thank you so much, Heather.
Love you too.
It's an honor.
See you soon.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, you're clear.
Thank you.
All right. Where did Carolyn go?
All right, I'm right here. I'm sorry. I didn't know what to. Am I here? Heather! That's so fun. Oh my God.
You guys were great.
I'm in the back of the house and I began sweating because the AC we don't have an AC for one in California. Look at you, you're taking your.
So I have all my studio lights on.
Oh, it's got to be so hot. I love you so much.
Hot.
You are awesome, Heather.
Oh, thank you. I loved having you on. It was good.
Yes,
Did you have a good time?
Yes, yes. I feel so happy. You made me feel so good. Thank
Well,
you.
good. No, you're doing a fantastic. I mean, you're doing a freaking fantastic job.
I'm so excited for you guys to come. Oh my God. And then Yosemite.
Oh, I know. I'm training. I'm doing my Stairmaster. We forgot to talk about that.
Oh, hey, I was going to say, would Ryan want to come? Because I think there's an extra pass. I was just thinking. Yeah. Well, you should ask him.
I'll ask him. I'll ask him.
Okay.
Because I don't think he could climb the whole thing because of his knee.
But, Garrett, I don't think Garrett really wants to climb the whole thing either, though.
I think it's probably going to be you and me.
I think so, too. We're going to be billy goats,
I can't wait.
So think about it and ask him because
okay, I'll ask him. I'll ask him.
I think that would be so fun.
It would. We can put, Kieran can go to his Baba and Grandma's house.
Exactly.
That would be good.
All right, I'm gonna get going here, ladies.
Bye, Cameron. Thank you.
All right, see ya.
you later.
Bye.